Alright, good morning YouTube. So today we're going to finally repair one of my chargers that I broke during installation firmware upgrades. I manhandled it a little bit and actually the USB port just snapped clean off when I tripped on the wire while installing my laptop and my port replicator. So it's been broken for some time. Ordered in China a couple of new spare USB devices, connectors, and today I'm gonna put a video together to actually how to repair it. So as you can see, my charger is fully equipped, and the majority is already upgraded to 0.19, which is an internal software release, but this one is still running on version 1 point something, and it's no longer fit for purpose. During the automatic discovery of the MegaCell monitor, it doesn't show up anymore because it has an incompatible version, stuff like that. So what we're going to do before we actually start soldering this device, the MegaCell charger, make sure you take out all the batteries. You don't want to have any residual charge in your battery or in your MegaCell charger while working on it. And also, once you've removed the batteries, we're going to remove the power feed. Take it out of its bracket because I've mounted it to a board which allows it to be cooled. I need to say right, not the charger to be cooled, but the power supplies internally to be cooled. And it makes it a nice setup. So make sure that when you do, unplug everything and make sure there's absolutely no power to your MegaCell charger. And make sure that you disconnect any leads, because they will have a residual power feed out of your USB dock. For this one it didn't make a difference, but yeah, it's always good practice to be safe than sorry, especially when you start working on the equipment. So next what we're going to do is remove the power feed and then slide it out of the rack, and then we'll have a close-up on what is actually broken and how does that look like. So remove the two terminal screws. Don't worry about polarity because it's written down on the PCB. It's plus on the left and minus on the right. Take it out, and then in my case you need to slowly slide it out of its casing. There we go. And then we're going to put it on the next camera so you can see in detail what we're doing. Also, what you can see, I have different tips, and for this one I have two choices. We either go for a small tip with a flat surface or the pointy one. I think the pointy one is the most practical one. If you have multiple soldering tips, then pick the right one, because the actual pins on these connectors are fairly small. So quickly gonna swap it out. As you can see, I've got my big tip connected to it. Reason for it is I was welding those PCBs from JU, where the battery banks actually needed a good amount of power to be soldered. Okay, that's done. Now we're good to go. Let's see, let's put it straight, make sure that you have a good view of what we're actually doing. So everything is set up, we're good to go. Got my soldering stuff ready. So we're now going to power it up, and then make sure that we're starting with a low temperature. Let's start with some 300 degrees. We'll wait until it's warmed up, and then we're going to have a look. So what you can see here is that this is the location where the previous pins were located, and they're completely sheared off, and that's something that we need to clean up first. I suspect that a small portion of the pins are still in here. Yeah, you can still feel them, so they need to come off. Soldering pads need to be cleaned, and then eventually we can put the connector back, peel off a little bit of that solder mask on the sides, I then put everything back together. So we're going to do that step by step. Make sure that your soldering iron is clean. And it is quite fiddly work, so take your time. Don't rush anything. It'll not help. And to be honest, it looks like that these pads are actually already clean. Which is actually a surprise. Okay. So that also means that there was not much solder on it to begin with. Alright, so here we're scraping off a little bit of the soldering mask to make sure that the underlying solder becomes accessible. You need to get the solder mask off if you want to tie the new USB connector into the board. Otherwise you have only the pins that hold it down. That's not enough. You need to make sure that on the front it at least have a drop of soldered to the board and your connector. You make sure that the connector is ready for soldering to the board. These pins are clean. They come straight out of the factory. They don't have any solder on it. They're just copper. So meaning that if you want to solder it to your board, you need to make sure that there's at least some solder on it. If you have solder paste, because you're already used to work with S&D stuff, you don't use a soldering rod. Use the paste. It's much easier. You get some paste on each of the connectors. And then you can put it on the board and solder it. As most of you don't have that, most of you have a regular soldering iron and a thin lead with flux core solder rod, and you see that works as well. You need to be very careful. You see that it easily sticks to 2 pins in one go. Now we've got here the new connector. So let's dry fit it, see how that goes. Probably I need to adjust the angle because yeah, we need to start soldering from the back. Yeah, that's gonna work out just fine. Make sure your tip is clean, put some solder on it, make sure that it flows. Gotta clean it a couple of times. Yeah, there. Okay, moment of truth. Plugged in, thing is soldered, and as you can see, it's firm, but I'm gonna be careful. I've repaired it now once. Yes, there you go. Awesome. This has been a pain. I think I've done this like 6 times now to get it right. And the biggest problem that I had is that on the side of these connectors there are small holes, and when I actually put the solder on to tie it into the board and make it more strong, because I don't have the lands were just ripped off, so I needed to scrape it off. The shoulders got sucked into the connector, filling it up from the inside. Even if it was a small amount, a really tiny amount, it caused the connector not to fit. So I'm really pleased with the result. It works. So we can now install it back and then flash it to firmware 2019. Add it into my MegaCell monitor release, and I got my charger back. Awesome. I'm really relieved. I thought I was never ever able to do this, especially with my soldering iron. It's so small, it's so delicate that I was like, I need to bring out my SMD gun, but I didn't want to. You guys don't have a SMD soldering equipment. You have these boards, you tinker around with it, and eventually when you're not careful, you might snap off that USB connector and you need to repair it yourself. So just a quick resume. Make sure that, well, I've done it with my heat at 300 degrees. Make sure you have as small as a tip as you can get, that is at least not overlapping the connectors on your USB at the back. If you do, solder will flow and it will be, the capillary effect will suck the solder on both lands, and then you can start all over. So very small tip. Make sure you scrape around the lands that you've pulled off. Scrape away the soldering mask, so you can actually put some solder on it which sticks. Try that before you actually do it. I did it afterwards. It was not that bright from my end, because if you don't scrape it off enough, it'll not stick. And once you've done, solder the lands one by one. Make sure that they're pre-soldered a little bit. Put them on, just tightly press. Make sure that the heat conducts, then the solder will flow, and take it off. Go to the next pin. Inspect, make sure that nothing of the soldering is touching the other ones, and then yeah, you should be good to go. This one is a fix. Hopefully it stays working like this, and I have now back 3 chargers. All right, awesome.